Good evening, everyone. How are you doing tonight? Good? Yes? Do I need to take a pulse here? That's what I used to say when I was giving speeches and doing things at the university, and I look at my students and they look like they were just on life support. And so I would always say, let's check our pulse really quickly. And then they would get it, and I don't tell jokes well, but that usually got a little bit of a laughter. So, thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to just take this opportunity to introduce some people that are very special to me, and you all probably know that it's all of you. So give yourselves a hand. Including my special little ninja buddy over here. Let's give him a hand, because he's the dancer. That Colgate smile. Oh, you're going to be in a commercial someday, I'm sure. So I wanted to take an opportunity to see how special and important this is for me. So this is a healing opportunity for me. That book was about giving birth to concepts, ideas, hurt, pain, triumph, all that I learned from so many people in my life, starting with my father and my mother. So if you have a chance to read the book, that is where it came from. I wrote the book for millennials, for Generation Z and X, and woke baby boomers. Because we need change in this society today. We're only going to be able to do that if we decide individually that we do need to, and then we need to roll up our sleeves and be about the business of making that happen. In the book I say it's important for so many reasons, but the youth, our little ones, they're watching what we're doing, the decisions that we're making every day. And I believe today, more than ever, there's misinformation, there's disinformation. I'd like us to get back to a place where we're learning from each other, we're teaching each other, and thus we'll be able to, in my opinion, heal with each other. So with that said, it's one of the reasons why I've invited, they kind of invited me here, as my fellow Caste sisters, my camaradas. You wonder why they're wearing their purple. It's all about, well, they'll tell you about it when they come up and talk. But at the end of the day, it's the cause that they took up when something happened in a major way in their life, and they decided to do something about it. And that's what we need to do today. When we can't stand something that's happening, when we know something is wrong, we need to stand up for that. Because if you don't, you're sitting down for whatever comes next. So that's what I attempted to do. This book is from my heart, my soul, my spirit, and a lot of mentors and people that I believe can help this world, and I mean world, to be a better place. One person at a time, one community at a time, one book signing at a time. Hopefully you had a chance to meet everyone. You're all rock stars to me, and I thank you for honoring me and coming tonight. So on that note, I'm going to invite Miss Pamela Bonsper up. She's going to share a couple things. Pamela is the artist and painter of these beautiful paintings, and there's so many more that you've got to take a look at. She's a sister from another mother, and we are dual in our cause to make change and to embrace the opportunity that we have if we decide to do that together. She so has that spirit. When we met, we just hit it off. We met centering around what happened with George Floyd, that horrific experience. But it gave us an opportunity to bond, and then I met so many others, and now we're really doing some things good that I feel and see. So please, She's just really, really special. Pamela, say something.
Okay, well, it doesn't start with me. We have the person that started this whole thing, Carrie. Is co-founder of our group, which is called Caste Action Alliance. And 3 years ago, after George Floyd's torture and murder, and I never say just killing, I always want to the torture. My friend Carrie and I were just devastated, as were millions of other people in the country and in the world. And she told me about a group that she was with. The group consisted, I think at that time, of you and Briandy, just 2 people, the co-founders of this group. And they met online at a Zoom meeting from the Church of Harriet Tubman during COVID. They were able to go to this online meeting where they were reading a book and talking about it. And Carrie told me about this book that they had read, called Caste, by Isabel Wilkerson. And she said, if you'd like to read that book, and maybe another, I think they actually had read 2 at that time, Caste and White Fragility. So she said, if you read those books and join our Zoom meeting, we're going to somehow do something about this. We're not going to, and I always give the analogy of, we're not going to sit around and watch the trains go by. That's the way it hit me. It was like, you know what, if I do not do something about this, I'm just like, I'm sitting down, just watching the trains go to the ovens. And I couldn't live with myself that way. So that was 3 years ago. We have grown now, and you'll see a lot of purple when we're around, when we're together. Tammy's also a member. And we wear the purple berets in honor of Malcolm X, Pink Panthers. We're the Purple Panthers in honor of the Black Panthers. And we know what atrocities were going on at the time, and yet we also know that there is a moment, and I'm sure you all know the quote, I can't remember it, but you sit a long time, you talk a long time, you try to make change, and at some point, you have to do something to make a difference. And sometimes it has to be violent. So we recognize that. Then we recognize all of the good things that have come from that, like people standing up. And we're standing up, trying to make a difference. This past year, in February I think it was, I was trying to see, we were doing all these activities that, maybe, did you tell about, actually you didn't, did you? Some of the things we do are we have a matron saint where we choose a Black woman that we admire and we want to use as our sort of our mentor, someone that we can talk to and get wisdom from. And that's one of our actions. Another one is we get these little plaques. We find out something about our background. Maybe we had an ancestor who owned slaves, and we have found that within our group. That has actually happened. And we do all kinds of things. And one of the things that I decided to do was to start painting and telling Black history through paintings. And not just Black history, but also people of color, people who are different. We kind of embrace diversity and inclusion. Our focus is on Black African Americans, and especially those who are descendants of slaves. The enslaved, I should say. Our biggest action is a scholarship fund that we have going, and we started it the first year. There were only about 7 of us, I guess, or 8 of us that first year. And we said, well, let's try to make a few $1,000s. All put a little bit in the kitty and ask our friends and whatnot. Well, we have now had 2 years of scholarships. I think we've had 13 recipients, is it, Carrie?
And way more than $1,000.
And way more than $1,000. The first year was about $10,000, and this year we're aiming for $20,000. So we're growing, and we're not just a couple of little old ladies, and just sitting around bemoaning the fact that things aren't right, the country's going backwards, that we should be doing something about this, learn more about Black history. We decided to do something. So I'm selling my items. The proceeds will go to our scholarship fund, so come up and see what you like. Do you like anything? And I'm going to have Carrie just speak for a second because I'm kind of tongue-tied. I want her to tell you a little bit more.
Hand for Pamela, please.
Oh, you did great, Pammy. I don't want to say much because I want to get to Jacqueline, but what Pam didn't say was our second year we raised $12,200. And so we have raised $22,000 for the descendants of enslaved people to go to community college, trade school, university, graduate school. And so we do have applications begin in January, and we just hope to keep on growing and growing that fund. So I just love Jacqueline Simon. I am so excited that you and Pam became such good friends, and now you're part of our group, and you are an inspiration. You are beautiful. You are so much heart. I loved your book, and I can't wait to hear you talk tonight.
Thank you. So, let me just say a couple more things that's important. If you're in this room, you're important to me. Anything I can ever do for any of you, please just let me know. Phone call away, text message away, email, whatever that is. Know that you can count on me. I know that I can count on those of you that are here in this room. So, on that note, what I'd like to do is give anyone an opportunity to share or say anything in regards to the book. I want to talk to you a little bit more about my motivation, and then maybe read a couple of areas that cause me to constantly remind myself that we're still in the fight. And we still need to, one moment at a time, one day at a time, continue to take that deep breath and keep on keeping on. Because if we don't, what do we have to lose? Everything. And your democracy, in my opinion, starts first. Once you lose that, my goodness, what do you have? Anarchy. So, on a positive note, in the last 12 days, I've been interviewed by 3 different associations that have read my book and said they're interested in featuring me in these various book shows. One is in Manhattan, New York area, of course. The other is the Los Angeles Times Book Club, and it's a book association, and they put it on every year. It's supposed to be pretty large. And then they have the last one, which I didn't share with everyone, but a couple of people that talked to me about it when I just found out, is in London, England, and it's at March, the middle of the month. And what I was thinking of definitely doing that one. The others I will be represented, and they ordered books with my new information that they've asked to have me put in it. But I was thinking we should all take a Caste and friends little day trip, well, it's probably a week trip, to London, England, and participate and enjoy that, and just enjoy life. Let's call it a self-care week, that we go and do something fun and good. So that is just, I was just humbled. I continue to be, and I'm looking forward to definitely probably doing that one. The other 2, I'm not sure if I'll have time. I recently have a sister that I'm providing some support service care for. She had open heart surgery about 12, 13 days ago. She's improving, but there's still some areas that we need to be mindful of and prayerful of, and therefore I don't want to be too far out of the country doing too many things so that I can't help open assist her. But like I said, on a positive note, I really want you to consider that. Think of it. I bet we can get a great group rate on a lot of different areas. I do know people in London and in England. I've spoken and represented the United States twice, so I still have those relationships. So I'm serious. Think about it, you know? When I business coach my clients, and they look at me like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Whatever it might be, and yet I look at them and I see they really want to do whatever that is. I say, let's take a deep breath and let's just do that. How can I help you make that decision? We need to take care of ourselves better and do the things that we believe can be positive and enriching for us in our lives as well. So I use that book trip, which I believe I'm probably going to do, as something for you to think about. I'm going to think about just doing that unless something presents itself that I can't. So on that note, I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask anyone any questions before I share some of the motivation in regards to the book. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that I love the title of your book and how you keep on bringing that up throughout the book. And you talk about, unspoken conversations. And I think a lot of people, but I know that I grew up in a liberal household, but I grew up in a time where we're supposed to not see color. You weren't even supposed to say somebody was black, It was, if you said that, the black lady, just because it was, so these unspoken conversations is so right on. And I'm so glad that you are bringing these conversations out with others, so we can all talk about what has happened in African-American history, in the United States, and so it's just that title, using that over and over again, is so powerful, it's so exactly right on.
Awesome. I'm so glad you said that and in that manner, because that was my motivation to get to subject matters that we tend to not want to talk about. And I believe that's some of the problem that we have today. We're not talking about what bothers us or what we should know more of before we make a decision to do whatever that is. So the Unspoken Conversation is about any subject that we're not dealing with. Whether it's with your children, your mate, your coworker, people that you meet, everyday people. I was sitting with a good friend who owns a restaurant here in Monterey County, and we were having dinner the other day, and he said, Jacqueline, how have you been? He says, I know you've been really busy. He says, what is this I hear about you writing a book? I said, oh yeah, I did. I finished it. It just came out. And he asked me about it. I told him a little bit more about it. And he said, wow, so this Caucasian, big guy, him and his wife, good friends of mine, they have children. And if you looked at him, you might think he's a person that might be affiliated with, a group that we might not all normally usually talk to and hang out with and what have you. So he appears that way. He appears as if he might be someone that you might not be able to relate to. So we started talking about the book, and then he literally opened it up. All you have to do is go to Amazon and put Unspoken Conversation, and then it pops up, and it gives you Kindle, paperback, hardcover. He looked at it, and he kept talking, and then I said, this is what it's about. I shared with them, and I said, it's about that unspoken conversation we're not having with people. He said, well, gosh, can I ask you a question? I said, absolutely. He said, in my community, where I live, when Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, all that happened and occurred, he said, in our communities, Toro Park, Salinas, California, he said, I woke up and we found no less than 13 of our stop signs with a black hand, black fist, purple knuckles, but that on the stop sign. And he said, it made us all so upset and angry, we couldn't believe it. He said, Jacqueline, he says, why would they do something like that to us? And I said, do you really think they were doing something like that against you? And he said, well, that's how we felt. We all walked out into the streets and we were just walking back and forth to each house saying, what do you think this is about? So he literally said, I'm gonna do something about it. He got turpentine and took it off of each of those stop signs. So he said, what do you think about that? And I said, what do you think about that? I said, that's what the book is about, so we can have this conversation. I said, now let's just talk a little bit more about what you think that might have meant. Why do you think people decided to paint the Black Lives Matter this? Half of the hand was black, the fingers were purple, and it was on a stop sign. And I said, so I know something about this. I didn't know this happened in the community and that you lived there at that time. I said, but what could that mean? And I said, well, here's what I've been told about that. I said, you're familiar with Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and I just listed up a lot of people that have been murdered, killed. And he says, yeah, I said, that's all awful. I think that's awful, that's wrong. I said, well, my understanding is someone wanted to send a message to your community and the community in general. And it was Black Lives Matter. And the stop sign is for you to stop killing our people. Period. And he looked at me and he got tears in his eyes. And we sat there for about a minute relating to that. And then we had literally an hour conversation about what it's like for the African American community to constantly be frightened when your nephews, nieces, young Black boys are going about life in the community, and you're hoping that they're going to make it back home or back to the ranch if they're visiting with me that night. Because we have so many issues surrounding African American people in their African American skin, just living life. So the Unspoken Conversation talks about the issues, the isms surrounding employment, finance, healthcare, no healthcare. Yet there's so many other areas and issues and problems and concerns in life that people are unaware of. This, like that sign, was to convey a message because they don't feel like they're being heard or listened to. And I said, so what we need to do is what you and I are doing right now. We're having those conversations. We're talking about something we normally may not have talked about in the past. And he just said, I have never had a discussion like this with anyone before, but I've always wanted to. So that's what it's about. It's whatever it is that we need to be talking about, that we give ourselves a chance to do it. And there's so many areas. My good friend Marianne Carbone, Indigenous mayor, I think the only Indigenous mayor in California, or maybe even, I'm not sure, definitely in California. She's awesome, she does wonderful things. They've had so many issues in various parts of the community where people haven't been respectful of the Indigenous communities. My goodness, I would say if you're looking at the big picture, African Americans have been horrifically treated. Indigenous people have been treated even worse, or equally. None of it's right. But we need to start talking about it. So I refer to that in the book. There's a whole host of communities that a good conversation I'm thinking about right now is one that I had with Dr. Renee Penalver, who did some editing in my book in regards to getting the African American community and the Hispanic community, Latinx communities to start talking more, communicating more, so that we can stop allowing the system to parachute into our relationships and put us at odds, and then we end up hating each other instead of who's really causing the problem, who's really stirring it up. say in the book that we have more in common than we have not. We have more in common with people that don't look like us than we have not. And we need to recognize that. And once we make that decision that, yeah, we can learn from each other, the three things I want to have happen is we learn from each other, that we teach each other, and then you're going to heal with each other. Would you agree with me that we need some healing in this world? In this country? So that's what it's all about. I have anecdotal information that I've provided, which is the story of my life in some areas that were very important. Lessons that I learned from my father, my mother, and other individuals. But I wanted it to be academic in some respects so that those that want to start mentorship programs, gosh, I have had so much success with that. It's a blessing in my educational environments and with students I mentor right now. I talk about reparations. So many people don't know and understand it. I didn't know and understand it until I did a deep dive and a lot of research on it. It's in there. I mean, I break it down. And I'm being honest, I'm being open, and the level of research that went into making sure everything I said in that area will give you knowledge to start talking about that too. So a number of the areas, as you mentioned, they have to do with deep-seated areas that we're not talking about, and some are just on the surface. So what I'm hoping that one will do is to read it, get back in touch with me if you want to talk more about it. But every person that purchases a book, I want to make sure I'm in touch with you because I'm going to invite you to something that this gentleman asked me to do, and he said he wanted to help sponsor it. The person that owns this restaurant that ended up having tears in his eyes after he found out the Black Lives Matter, he got it so much he wants to invite all of his Caucasian friends. And I'm like, I'm fine, that's good. In fact, I think that's even better to have the conversation he and I had. So look at that. And it simply came out of us discussing the book. So the other thing he did is he opened up his phone and he ended up buying 2 books right there while I was having dinner. I said, oh, that's really great. I'm going to do this more often. Go to places, have dinner, talk to the people, and see if what happens after that. And he said he bought one for him and one for someone that works there at the restaurant that I know as well. So that's a level of success to start a conversation. Yes.
What you said is all beautiful and it's really touching, but I keep going back to your book. I got it on Kindle, and everything that you're talking about, probably about maybe 4 or 5 chapters in, thinking of your dad. I really appreciate how you lay out how you grew up. Your mother and your father were they had to make sure that you were presentable because they already knew that you had a couple strikes against you, so you had to be super presentable and go out and speak right and all of that kind of thing. So I appreciate the background on your family. I think it really gives me a good perspective. So I've got 2 questions for you.
Yes.
What would your father be thinking about? How would your father have reacted to what happened with George Floyd in the context that being in the room as the only African American leader in a lot of North County, people that are going to look the other way and just does not want to get involved. And secondly, this is a hard one. Probably as the only African American woman in many rooms, or perhaps the only person of color, what's it like for you to have to just represent Democratic women the other day? There was 2 of you. There was Dr. Marty Malazak and yourself in a room where Rosalind Carter is talking about building healthy communities in the Black community. And no offense to Democratic women, but I was a little embarrassed. I'm just like, why aren't there more people here to hear this? That was my point of view. So I've got 2 points. What would your father have been saying about George Floyd? People of substance and character that are white in North County, and how do you, as an African American woman, feel with being the only one in the room?
Navigate. Yes. That's a loaded question. Yes, but this is exactly what this is about. So my father would always say, Jacqueline, always look at the big picture. You have an opportunity to teach someone something. He said, and he would say, when they're making naive or ignorant statements, gives you a chance to teach somebody something. He always said, take the high road, except, or if it was so bad, just whatever you articulate, have it be as professional, without words that may cause one to think they're only going to hear that word that I say, as opposed to what I'm going to share with you that's important. So he was a person that believed that all people have rights. Just like I stated, we're still waiting for the level of inequality and injustice that has happened for all. He believed in all of them as well. As an elected, he was an elected, and I saw what happened. I heard what happened. I observed some things you'll see in the book where when we were running, he was running for office and awful things happened. So at the end of the day for me, I'm always going to be honest. I'm always going to be open. And I normally usually started out with, so can I be real here today? And I just look at everybody, try to catch that eye, the look in their eyes, and I say, seriously, can we really keep it real? When you look at me, who do you see? So I'll start with people giving me input, so people can hear each other, because that's part of the learning process. Because sometimes there are people that, regardless of how you bring them to water, they could be thirsty and starving. They're not going to do it because of my African American skin. But he taught me not to ever walk in any room thinking about my skin color. He taught me to walk in and be proud like he was, like my mom was. Even though there's times when, I can read a room, I can read you in a New York minute. I worked in criminal justice. My life depended on it. So I'm real good at that. So for people that I know I'm not going to be able to help at all, he always taught me, cut your losses. Share with them, well, I hear you. We have opposite opinions. We don't agree, but I'm respectfully going to leave it right there. So I'm still going to give an individual an opportunity to hear themselves. I'm not going to try to change someone's mind that I know it would be a waste of time, but I will respect them to speak their mind. And I think to add on to what you're saying in regards to being in a room like the Democratic Women of Monterey County, or where I was the only African American for many years. There was a lady, she left. She thought she was unheard, unseen. I was a part of it for a fair amount of time. And at times felt somewhat the same way, because sometimes people just don't see the big picture for whatever reason, or even when they do, they still have something that's called white fragility. Have any of you ever read that book, White Fragility? Read that book. It'll tell you a whole lot about this subject matter that we're talking about right now. For me, I'm not going to focus on those areas as much when I'm out in life and in society, because boy, if I do, it'll take all my time away from trying to write good books and teach people and mentor and live my life and have some self-care. Because I'm telling you, some of those areas are so horrific. They're so disrespectful. They just get you right there. And my father always said, as a Christian, when we feel weak, we are strongest. I take that deep breath, and I'll come back at whomever that might be in as professional a manner that I can, but cutting to the chase and saying to people, as I have in a couple of environments, sometimes old habits, sometimes levels of racism and other isms have to die off with that ideology in that person, because you're not going to change them. And sometimes I'll say, I feel bad about that, because that means you may not be here. So for these other levels of change to happen, sometimes we just have to cut our losses, work with those people that we end up believing can learn from our knowledge, help teach us maybe some things as well. And then again, we can heal from that situation. When I say heal, I'm talking about life. Because if you keep this bottled up, if you keep these areas continuing to tether at you, you're probably going to end up with an ulcer or worse. So for me, I generally take the high road. I'm always going to be honest. In taking the high road, I'm honest. And I also give people an opportunity to teach me something. Something that happened in my last election. I went out to one of my areas, Prundell, and was in an environment where 3 swastika skinhead people were in the room, and one person just kept on coming up with, I'm not going to say airhead, but some things that just didn't make any sense. So I let him finish, and then I said, you're in my district. What can I do to help you? And he looked at me, and he looked at his 2 friends, and he kind of put his head down, and he said, are you serious? I said, yes. You're in my district. I took an oath of office to serve you too. So tell me, what can I do for you? And he looked at me and looked at his friend, and he said to him, I don't believe this. Is that what you really said? Whispering back and forth. And I said, yes, that's what I really said. And at the end of the day, that is who I am. And that's what my father taught me. He was a member of this department of which I was elected as well. And he served your father and your father's father. And I'm here to serve you as an elected in my district. So, what can I do for you? And I thought he was going to fall on the floor, his mouth up off the floor, but he did sit backwards, and I just saw like a balloon. It just deflated. So you just gotta, Christine, at times, try to come up with the right thing to say, to get in there for a little bit, to see if there's any sense of understanding or humanity. But that's what I tend to do, always. All right, good question. Anything else real quick? Okay, good. If I think about things I believe are very important to me, and I hope will be for you, is keeping yourself supported by people that are like-minded. Because not everyone has an opportunity to talk to someone that has experienced some of these types of areas. That's why I love Caste. You don't know how, when I met you all, I couldn't believe it on this Zoom call meeting, and Pam was introducing me to the rest of you. And I'm looking, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to be dealing with all these levels of racism, isms, and issues that everybody in society needs to deal with. And I'm looking at you, and I'm like, this isn't the normal group that I'm with that are trying to do that. So I was so happy and pleased to see that. And then when they opened their mouths and they started talking about all these areas that are so very important and what they were out there doing. When George Floyd happened, you did something about it. When George Floyd happened, I gathered people together. We developed a collaboration, and both Dr. Penalver and a number of other people were a part of that, to do something, to show people how to make change, how to deal with systemic issues, implicit bias. And it really made a very, very positive inroad there in that community, because many people are still getting in touch with us on that. So I'm an educator, so I'm hoping that people continue to be educated about the subject matter. That when you meet someone that doesn't look like you, or if you're making comments that may offend someone, try to find out why and do something about it. So that to me is extremely important. And I guess I'm thinking about a fact that there's so much going on today in our classrooms. There's so much going on today in trustee boards of education that is really harboring and protecting some of these ways that our teachers are now having to acclimate to. And therefore, you're going to have all children not receiving appropriate education, in my opinion. When I was talking to a gentleman about his children, and some of their educational books have been removed from their schools, he said, well, I don't know if that's going to work or be any good or not. And I'll say, well, think about the fact that your children are now not going to have that understanding within the African American community. So when they get older and they meet someone from the African American community, and they don't know how to relate to them because of these different books and different things that have happened where their level of education is being changed, how are you going to feel about that if they're not able to handle and deal with it? I said, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about education. So when we're being erased across the nation, our history is being erased across the nation, what is it being replaced by? And how do those African American children or Hispanic children or anyone, how do they feel about their education being removed? At the end of the day, we all need to learn more about each other. Because if we don't, what do we have? And most times when people are frustrated, they keep talking about it and it's not being dealt with. There's another option that a lot of communities are starting to look at and believe that that's the way to deal with it. And that they are talking about civil war. They're talking about taking up arms. I can't tell you how many people I know of right now, educated people, talking about how many new guns they now have. That frightens me. It really does. I understand it. Protection is important, but my goodness, we need to start talking more. So the book is about giving all of us that opportunity to have what I call the unspoken conversation, that you can have the opportunity to talk to someone, to ask someone a question, and use my book as an example. Just have it with you. Go somewhere and just say, hey, I just read this book. This lady's talking about having discussions we normally wouldn't. What do you think about that? And whether it's starting with your family members during the holidays, because I know people that have family members that aren't even relating these days, because one is supporting one ideology and the other one is supporting the other, and they can't even break bread or have a turkey leg together. I mean, families that are literally being destroyed by ideology. Last I saw, we're the human race, and we should be able to be that. Together, all of us. Those skinheads, one of them's one of my best buddies now. Still scary looking, but I get it, I feel him. At the end of the day, that's who he is. But if I go up and campaign in that area, I'm gonna call Harvey first. And just tell him I'm gonna be there, have your boys there. Let me help you figure out what we're doing here. Because that's what my father would have done. So if you haven't got a copy of this, this is some of the discussions I was having with these new festival book shows. And so this information is going to be placed and uploaded into the book. So it will be on the back of the book for the future. And I'm happy also to share with you when I talk about motivation and why I do what I do. These three words are what I live by and for, think about every morning when I wake up. I am faithful. I am faithful in humanity and in life and in my religious beliefs. And because I'm faithful, I'm hopeful. It gives me hope because there's so much awful out there that if we don't have hope, we're going to give up. And lastly, if we're faithful and hopeful, love can grow and exist. And I believe there needs to be a lot more of that in society than we have today. We always have to remember there's reasons for people that are constantly trying to stir it up, even when something very positive is happening. They don't want that. That sells newspapers, it sells books, it does a lot. But we have to continue to support each other. We have to continue to have the conversations that normally one doesn't have, because I think with that, it'll give you an opportunity to grow from it and then pass it on. Sharon Miller is one of my favorite people for many reasons, but one reason is on my, I guess it's the 5 stars, like for how do you feel about the book after you've read it? Some of the words she shared were just phenomenal, and I've had people call and say, wow, I read what people are saying about the book, so they're now buying it because of what people are saying. So after you read the book, if you have anything good to say, I'm joking, please upload something, so thank you for that. Little hand for Miss Miller. Okay, now another. Would you tell everybody a little bit about what you do? He's awesome.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Thompson. I am the founder and executive director for the Next Step Reentry Center for formerly incarcerated veterans. That includes women, because I understand that the women demographic is grossly underserved. And my wife and I want to definitely make an impact on trying to provide services to assist these women that are returning to our community and give them a platform and a paradigm to navigate themselves on a path to success. And we want to not only be a part of their path and journey, but we also want to collaborate with other organizations in our community to let them know that we are invested in creating a safe community. Public safety is optimum, and until it becomes optimum, we're going to be in the fight. So we've been in this community now for about 2 years. We're from up north. I'm from the Bay Area. My wife is from Sacramento, but we love it here. We plan to be here, and this is our investment. We have a stake in it, just like you, so we're here to stay.
Yay. Dr. Renee Penalver to come up and say a couple words about Junior League, and because we'd love you all to be interested in this. We're doing wonderful things. Emblem right here is so cool. People come up to me everywhere and say, oh, what does that represent? And I say, oh, well,
Thank you, Jacqueline. Hi, everyone. I'm the current president of the Junior League of Monterey County. So we're a nonprofit organization committed to women development, women leadership, and volunteering in our community. So we just helped open the Schumann Heart House, which is the unhoused women and children shelter in Monterey. We worked with Caste and Noche Buena. We've worked with Gathering for Women. So services that help women and children. And we also have leadership training and just want to help women become leaders in our community. We'd love to have you. We're a membership organization, so if you're interested, I think I've given almost all the women in here my business card, but we'd really love to have you, and even if you don't become a member, you're always welcome to volunteer with us, come to our trainings. It's been really fun, and we're working to diversify the organization. So Jacqueline is helping me to do that, and I'm really grateful. Thank you all so much.
I don't know if you had a chance to meet Christina Medina Dirksen. She's the Mayor Pro Tem of Marina. So please come over and say a few words. She's awesome.
Mayor Pro Tem, that just means that he's not around. He's not around. I just have, sometimes God works in very odd ways. We all know that. And these ladies from Caste, I worked at the Community Foundation when they set up
their scholarship. And I'm the person who put together their webpage. Yes. And I was like, what is this all about? And I read the book, I read it on the audio. So as they were putting together their information, it's like, oh, what do we put? What do we, all this purpose. And, it can just like really go over your head when you're trying to like have this big giant idea and like distill it to its important points. I was really honored to be able to have the context, and I knew exactly what you were trying to do. So God put us all together in a really interesting way, I think, right? Yeah. So I know, of all things, here they are, and I saw their faces, and it's like, oh my God, I know who you are, but you got by it. So I'm honored to be in this room with all of you doing that work, and honored to know you. And I have it on my Kindle, so it's read to me every night. And I told her she needs to be her voice. So I'm listening to it. Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
And for Mayor Pro Tem.
Wow.
Who's at 11?
Now, one second. So if everybody can do something funny and with feeling, let's say it on 3 maybe.
What are we supposed to do? Healing?
Something fun. Something fun.
Like thumbs up.
Feeling?
One of those.
What do I have on top? Something funny.
He's already doing it.
Okay, so something funny on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, very funny.
All right.
Thank you so much.